All right, it's time for some people power, having a voice in Web3. We're going to start with some intros. We have a really great panel for you. I'm Amanda Cassett, aka Amanda.eth. I'm the founder and CEO of Serotonin. We bring the world's breakthrough technologies to market.
I'm Adam Badrawi. I'm a partner and head of investor relations and head of global comms at Framework Ventures. Prior to that, I was comms lead at Chainlink Labs. And prior to that, I worked at a PR firm where I serviced over 30 different blockchain and crypto clients.
Thanks. So my name is Edgar. I'm an active delegate in different DAOs, maybe better known as Ezreal. That's my name in the governance forums, and happy to be here.
Hey everyone, my name is Zach Rhines. You may know me as Chainlink God or CLG on Twitter. I'm a Chainlink community liaison, which means I'm effectively a bridge between the Chainlink Labs team and the broader Chainlink and crypto community.
So maybe let's start with you. Tell us your story of how you first got involved in Web3 and kind of how you stood up as a community member.
Yeah, so I originally got into crypto in early 2018, and I stumbled upon Chainlink back in the days where there wasn't a whole lot of marketing around Chainlink in general. I fell down the traditional like Bitcoin and then Ethereum and then Chainlink rabbit hole. But in those early days, Chainlink didn't do a lot of marketing. There was a lot of breadcrumbs of institutional connections of how institutions are going to need these external data inputs, and that really clicked for me that smart contracts as a technology doesn't really make sense unless you have these external inputs, external outputs, and this connectivity to traditional systems. And Chainlink was the only project at the time that was coming up with a real solution to actually solve that problem in a very tangible manner, and having all these very bizarre but very cool institutional connections that date back like a decade at this point. So when I fell down that rabbit hole, read the white paper and all these breadcrumbs from people in the community, it just immediately clicked for me, and it became very, very obvious. And at that point, I became link-pilled, and it's kind of just become my life ever since.
But what did that process actually look like? You were kind of obsessed with this nights and weekends, then you reached out and joined the community. What are the mechanics?
A lot of it during the early days was absorbing information that other people have dug up and other people that they have found in the community. And a lot of that was on different internet forums. Some of it was 4chan, but like a lot of it went down into crypto Twitter. And what I saw there was that there was a lot of information asymmetry, a lot of misunderstandings, and just people didn't really understand oracles or smart contracts or blockchains really. So I kind of took it on as my own personal responsibility that, hey, if I can dig into this technology and explain it in an easy to digest manner, then that can kind of grow the Chainlink community and grow the crypto economy and create this flywheel effect where more and more developers are creating these applications. So I just took the initiative and started creating these tweet threads, these blog posts, these podcasts, arguing with people late at night on Twitter, which maybe wasn't worth it, but yeah, I think a lot of people got a lot of information out of those, and so I took the initiative and just started giving as much information as I could to people.
It's so cool how you can, as an individual, permissionlessly opt in and then become a leading voice in a community by educating. Edgar, you are the delegate du jour. So many different DAOs. You're basically like a hyper senator or congressman of the blockchain world. How did that happen?
I think it all started like in 2017. I was just looking into cryptocurrencies and so on, and I found out about ETHLand, like the former protocol of Aave. And that's where I started. I was reading the white paper. I was helping the team actually back then translating it to German. And I basically stick to it because I also invested, and I was like, okay, I want to know what is happening. And when Aave was there and the DAO was created, I simply stick to it. I was reading the forum. I was making comments over time. I was making proposals. Like, it evolved over time. And last year, finally decided to create my own delegation platform, which is quite successful. I'm a second biggest delegate, or the biggest independent delegate with like no company behind it. And I also decided to go to Arbitrum and ZK Sync just to like also do my work there, basically.
How many professional delegates do you think are out there? How many people like you?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I think most have a company behind them. Like, We've seen there's, for example, we have Gauntlet somewhere. We at Aave, we have like ACI, which is very big and doing growth. So it's really hard to estimate if there are only individuals behind there or they have a team. Most people are anons, so you don't really know who is there in the end.
Super unique. Adam, I want to get into your story. I observed during the 2020, 2021 era that Framework was participating in some of these communities in a really unique way for a VC fund. What's your story in terms of community participation? How did you arrive?
So I had, I think, a little bit of a less majestic arrival into crypto and Chainlink compared to these folks. I first started, I saw some Chainlink memes, and I thought they were funny.
Wow.
And I joined a PR firm at the time. I worked there for about 2 years. I was representing all these different blockchains and apps, and by the end of it, I was pretty disillusioned. I was ready to leave crypto. It felt like a dead end. These things were not launching. And then it was like I got hit with this aha moment about Chainlink, piping in all this data, the rise of DeFi. And at the same time, Framework became my last client at this firm. And I don't know, for context for everyone, Framework was the largest VC investor like in DeFi. So Chainlink, Aave, Synthetics, the Graph, the 1.0 stuff. We've since expanded. But I worked with Michael and Vance, our co-founders, for a few years. And yeah, eventually worked at Chainlink. So yeah.
So we got a big group of Chainlink folks.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I missed the memo. Everyone's in black T-shirts. That's fine.
So everyone talks about community in Web3. It's such a buzzword. Projects want to showcase that they have great communities. Some succeed, some fail. We also see a lot of inorganic activity in our space. What are the criteria for a Web3 project creating a real organic community? What are the qualities that you think make these communities succeed or fail? Maybe let's start with you.
Yeah, I think that first and foremost, the project itself, the product that they make has to be solving a real problem. Because if it's not solving a real problem, you cannot rally people behind that project and you won't be able to build sustaining momentum over time. So that's like table stakes at that point. Beyond there, I think a community operates best when there's some level of structure, and I don't mean like top-down control type structure, but I mean some group of educators setting the tone, educating people, breaking down misinformation, and having the patience to deal with people who have very new entrants who have early questions or just trolls and toxicity, being able to kind of control those environments. And so I think a lot of projects have asked me, like, hey, I see what you do in the Chainlink community. We want a CLG in our community. Like, how can you create that dynamic? You can't necessarily just go to the store and buy CLG off the shelf like you would a cereal. You need to be able to cultivate an environment where that type of entity grows naturally and the team can support that entity because they're the ones who can actually be able to spend the time, have the agency, and actually have the passion about that project. And that's not something that you can manufacture or just simply airdrop into existence. So you have to create an environment that allows people to want to contribute and want to educate people themselves, and without the team kind of trying to force and manufacture a CLG or that kind of type of educator into existence, because that's not going to be the most genuine environment.
Zach, I'm curious though, is there no place for extrinsic rewards? Does everything have to be intrinsic?
I think there's a role where that can play, but I think that can't be the one motivating factor. I think a lot of people, they want to be able to contribute to something that they think is bigger, that they think has a bigger problem, societal problem that the project is solving. If it's just purely financial incentives, you'll be able to tell that it's not genuine, that it's not authentic, and they're not going to want to be able to have they're not going to have their own agency to go out and solve either community problems or misinformation or some kind of disconnect between the team and the community. Financial incentives alone is not enough of a motivating factor.
Yeah, we find this at Serotonin with a lot of the projects we market where they'll try some sort of extrinsic rewards, and what matters is what people do once the music stops.
Exactly.
If they keep on doing that action once they're not being rewarded for it, then it worked and it's an investment. And if not, it's a bribe and they're gone. What do you think, Edgar? What do you think makes these communities succeed or fail?
I think what Zach already said makes a lot of sense, and I think what I would add is also you need a kind of a place where people can talk to each other. And for example, in the governance forums, there's the place. everybody can talk to each other, or if you have like a Telegram or even better, Discord that is structured, where you can know there's like different channels for different topics, then you can talk to these different entities, like for example me, if someone has a question about a proposal that is coming up, but talking like about intrinsic and extrinsic values, I think you need to keep those people long term, and basically giving out some incentives will be good for the beginning, but then the question is what is going to happen if they stop. And for example, I would say being a delegate at Aave, there was no kind of payments or something else to keep them alive. In reality, it became, I think, only last year that delegates get paid if they do certain things. So they have to keep some, for example, voting activity alive. And before that, there was nothing. But still, there were a lot of people coming in, and now there are even more. And it's keeping that level high, and it makes it even higher and better, because there are now more people being active, and it's always good to have more voices and opinions on this.
So my question, Edgar, is in those early days at Aave, when the delegates weren't getting paid, what were they motivated by? What was motivating you as a delegate?
For me, it was in the beginning, it was kind of the curiosity, but also the investment I had. But afterwards, it was a good product. It still is a good product. It's easy to use. It has this product market fit. And I simply liked how everybody was engaging around it. I was in a simple, small trading group of people. We were like 50 people and not much more. But everybody was like talking each day to each other. So I knew people from Australia and other countries, and that was really great, and that kept me like being active all the time.
It's interesting, you and Zach have both talked about how people get inspired to do things for intrinsic reasons because of a technology and a product that's really good, that has product market fit or the potential for it. Adam, do you agree with that, or is there anything else that you think makes or breaks these communities?
So first, I definitely agree with it in the sense that, you know, everyone knows that a lot of people are motivated by financial incentives in crypto, but the projects that really last have so much more than that. Like, people want to be part of a mission. You want to be part of a journey. Mm-hmm. Like, in my early era in Chainlink, like, when I heard people talking about, like, the singularity, the fourth industrial revolution, like, these things are a little bit hyperbolic, but, like, I got chills down my arms. I was so excited to be part of that journey. I mean, even before I was, you know, part of the team, you know, I was spending time, effort, creating resources, engaging with people. And I think, in general, people are desperate for, you know, a mission in their lives, and I think if you can tap into that, you know, ethically, and you really do have that mission yourself as well, I mean, you can do anything. I think also, I mean, one little example I thought was kind of funny was in 2018, I remember I had been assigned to work with a project as part of an agency that was doing a physical airdrop. They had put coins in balloons on the ceilings, and they invited all these people. They had a whole community thing, and you know, they let all the balloons down, and everyone scrambled on the ground for their airdrop. And I'll never forget, this one guy grabbed a coin. It was like $1,000, and he turned to his friend and he goes, "Drinks are on me tonight, guys." And I'm like, that guy's not going to be around. He's not going to be around in a week, a month, a year. But around the same time, I'd be on Twitter and I'd be seeing incredible threads on things like Chainlink. And I was like, I want to align with these people. So that's important. The other thing I would say is kind of slowly but surely, you know, finding people and community members that are excellent. Because when you find excellent people, they bring excellent people too. If you are top tier talent, you don't want to be around people who are just in it for the ride, right? So taking the time, and I think Chainlink has done that. I think a lot of the top tier projects have done that. It really helps, because those are the people that stick around when things get bad. Those are the people that make the lore, that make the culture, that make the community. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about mission and purpose. Being on the early-ish Ethereum team, saw a lot of that with the meetup groups springing up in all these different cities, and how it was offering people this community around techno-optimism. We can use technology to design better systems for the world, which was really lacking at the time. I'm curious, you guys have jumped between working closely with the internal team on a project and being very much in the community. What can a project team do to best support their community? What do you think, Zach?
I think that what your question gets at is kind of almost what's the role of the team and what's the role of the community
Exactly.
and how they interact. I think the team, first and foremost, to my previous point, is that they need to be able to build a product, a high-quality product that people want to use, that people want to pay for, that actually move towards a particular vision. That's first and foremost goal, that if they're not building towards that, then it's basically a fugazi, and you're not actually building a real community, you're not building a real project. And for the community, it's basically helping support that adoption flywheel. Because I think there's a very real flywheel between the community developer and the team, where as a protocol launches a product, the community advocates for that product to developers, the developers integrate that product into their application, then that application, because they use that product, they have an initial user base from that protocol's community. They use the protocol, they advocate it for on crypto Twitter, it basically raises awareness of that application, and that's a signal to other developers, hey, if I use that infrastructure, I also get an initial community, and I also get advocacy from all these people, and it accelerates this flywheel effect. I think that one way that teams can help support communities in accelerating that flywheel effect is essentially providing ammunition to the community. So if there's misinformation, there are concerns, I don't think it's necessarily on the team to get into the trenches and debate with people on crypto Twitter about why this or that is misinformation and not true. I see that sometimes on crypto Twitter, and I just think, like, do they have nothing else better to do than argue on Twitter all day?
And they realize the engagement boosts that tweet.
Yeah, exactly, and then it raises the awareness of that, where the more effective route is to put the information out there so that the community can take it and they can repackage it in their way, and they can break down that misinformation or educate in their own formats, whether that's memes or videos or blogs or any kind of media content, but it's really providing the community ammunition, whether it's external attacks through like FUD or it's internal concerns and questions for things that don't make sense. Once that ammunition's out there and the community can latch onto it and then they can repackage it into a format that they think makes the most sense to educate other people, that's where you get the flywheel effect really accelerating at that point, and the team can focus on building a great product, getting initial product market fit, and just developing this ecosystem of adoption, and then the community can help accelerate that process, and they just need this ammunition to keep the process going.
I love that. I love that, like, the internal team being focused on the product and providing information to the community, and then the community going out into the world and interacting. It's such a nice, clear division of labor. Do you agree with that, Edgar?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we've seen it in several DAOs where, for example, let's say Avara, the head company of Aave, or the Arbitrum Foundation made a post. They tried to explain it, but you can definitely see that community users or service provider working for these DAOs try to make it, again, easier, explained it on different channels like X, Telegram, Discord, like wherever they are. If they have a newsletter, they share it there. And that makes it definitely easier, because there's this one person that is more techy, maybe understands it that way better. Maybe there are just people that are user and they need some kind of easier explanation, and that way you have different people talking to each other. And also, again, the focus can be that other groups can work on the product, they can take the feedback, try to improve it. So it's like everybody has to talk to each other, if it's the DAO talking to the company creating the product, if it's the community, if it's just one user giving good feedback, everybody has to talk to each other and has like their own little job, even if they don't know they have it.
What do you think, Adam? Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I've always viewed the dynamic kind of like a conversation where both parties aren't always directly talking with each other. Like, the community should, like, the project shouldn't be like following the community in the sense that every time the community clamors for something, they should be, you know, trying to get something over the line. But they need to be paying attention for what the community needs. And you know, when I was doing comms for a lot of different projects, you know, we'd pay close attention to, like, if a community member is losing an argument, like, what could have helped them win that argument? And how do we make that available to them? I'd also say there's a little bit of soft power going on as well, especially in media. And you're probably aware of this as well. But like, when you're a community member and you actually care about your project and you're advocating or talking about it or engaging on Twitter or even in the comments of like articles and stuff that get posted, like, that has this effect where people pay more and more attention. Reporters want to cover a story that gets clicks, even if it gets negative clicks or angry clicks. So, yeah, there's this huge incentive to work on some level with the community and give them things that helps. So.
Yeah, I mentioned that it really struck me years ago when I noticed Framework participating directly in some of these Web3 native communities in a way that I hadn't seen a fund actually do. And this cycle, we have so many institutions coming in. And I have this funny image of BlackRock participating directly in a DAO vote. Or one of these other big bank institutions coming into one of these protocols and hiring delegates. Who knows, right? It seems right now like there's this spectrum, like there are these different worlds. There's this very Web3 native, decentralized world with anons, delegates, DAOs, and then there's this more TradFi world with ETFs, wrappers around things, intermediaries. How do you think the role of, the kinds of roles that you have are evolving in a cycle, in a world where there are more institutions coming in? Is that relevant? What do you think, Zach?
I think what's interesting and what we've seen over the past year is that a theory that people had is that when institutions step in, they're just going to fork everything. They're going to make private instances of chains, private applications, and just kind of create their own intranet, so to speak. And I think what we're seeing over the past year is that there are institutions like BlackRock and other asset managers are actually adopting public blockchain infrastructure and public infrastructure, Oracle networks, blockchain bridges, blockchain networks themselves. So they're already stepping in because a lot of the institutions see that there's already a huge user base on public blockchain networks, and they want to tap into that liquidity. Asset managers specifically want to get into that liquidity. And so I think what we'll see and what will ultimately be healthy for the crypto ecosystem is almost a splintering of two worlds, where on the one side, you have the institutional adoption of public infrastructure, kind of like the BlackRock and the Buildle Fund, and there'll be protocols that facilitate that connectivity between traditional systems and these blockchain networks, and that'll be where the projects who can actually help facilitate that connectivity can help those institutions bring trillions of dollars on chain. And I think there's a whole other world, which is what we've seen on the other side over the past few years, is the acceleration of, I call it financial nihilism, but it's the hyper-speculative casino gambling meme coin mania phrase. And that's incompatible with the traditional institutions stepping in and adopting blockchains. So what I see in the future is there's actually a splintering between those two worlds of the institutional side and then the meme coin casino side, and they'll both coexist. But they're two distinctly different industries that don't necessarily connect with each other. And I think it's healthy that if we can actually split those into two different industries, that people can focus on which area of the industry that they actually want to engage in.
Yeah, what's really interesting about what you're talking about is a split by audience type, goal, focus, not a split by infrastructure. So you have kind of the big TradFi institutions participating on the same infrastructure. You have the meme coins and casinos on the same infrastructure, but it's just a spectrum of people with different goals. Do you agree with that, Edgar?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've seen it, especially at the Aave again, that more and more institutions want to come in, and that they have their own governance department. So they didn't care at first. They just had their tokens, but now they're using it. So I've talked to a few companies and also bigger names that I didn't know about that they were active. They were following every forum, doesn't matter where they are active, and they try to influence it. And that's the way you are able to do it, by being active, talking to community members and so on. So that's like the change you can see, and depending on who is coming in, if it's retail, if it's institutions, you can see that products are being changed towards those institutions, for example. So they get tailored markets, they get whatever they want, whatever they need, in any kind of way to, let's say, have a real working product for them that is legal and so on.
I think it's really encouraging that you both think the big institutions are going to come in to the same infrastructures as people are using in kind of native DeFi, as opposed to everything being through different intermediaries and wrappers. So that definitely sounds really healthy for DeFi. What do you think, Adam? Are you on the same page, or do you think it's going to be more of a split world?
I think it's kind of similar to what you're saying. I think these folks are wading in at a much faster rate than we realize. Sometimes I speak to some of these sorts of folks. I won't name names, but I'm just surprised at how plugged in they are. They're listening to the same sorts of podcasts. They're listening. They're engaging on the same sorts of forums. And I think eventually, if there's another cycle, the temptation to just figure out ways to participate more are going to be too great. I also think there's going to be products that are kind of like a C DeFi, like there's going to be kind of a bit more like KYC things. But yeah, no, it's I think the idea that like these private chains, Quorum, Maersk's supply chain, look what's happening to R3. Like the whole narrative around private stuff is dead.
Totally,
and I
blockchains without crypto. And
exactly, and it's good. It's good that it's dead. So yeah.
those stable coins are kind of that in a way.
Yeah.
Maybe, we'll see. Interesting, okay, cool. So final lightning round, doesn't have to be that lightning, but if people here want to get involved in a Web3 community and want to see an example of one that is, that really just showcases all the things we've been talking about, where can they go to look? And let's say Chainlink, but let's also say some other things so people can compare and contrast. Let's start with you, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, I'm biased at a Chainlink conference, and I work with the team, and I'm Chainlink God, so I think Chainlink's
Everyone absolutely should, of course.
I think Chainlink's an interesting example because back in 2017, that was like the ICO mania, and there was all this hype, there was all this mania, and I think out of all the white paper token sales back then, it was like Binance and Chainlink were the ones that really survived out of a lot of those, and I think Chainlink was born in a unique environment. Like I mentioned, that the team didn't do marketing from 2017 to basically early 2020, and so a lot of it was just the community, and they were educating each other, and they were digging up all these breadcrumbs and all this information, and it created this environment where the team was just building, and then the community was just digging up all these breadcrumbs in the meanwhile and educating people and creating these memes and all this material that. To be honest, I don't know if that same process could be replicated now. 2017 crypto is a very, very different type of environment than 2024 crypto, but I think it's an interesting case study of how a community can be rallied together. The whole Link Marine community can be created where it's this cult-like mentality, cult-like in a good way, where it's just people passionately advocating for one vision, one future of the ecosystem. And I think that what's cool about Chainlink is that it's blockchain agnostic, so all these blockchain ecosystems all plug in, and it's application and use case agnostic. So I think like Aave is a great example of an application where the initial Aave user base was the Chainlink community. It was the place where you could use link tokens in certain ways, and you can, a lot of the advocates, and I was one of them, of Aave was the Chainlink community initially. So the Chainlink community has almost bootstrapped all these other communities, and it's been really cool to see all these DeFi applications get born out of the Chainlink infrastructure that was created, and Aave synthetics are, I think, great examples of that as well.
Super lightning, communities for people to look at.
I think you just have to start somewhere. Doesn't matter if you're just having an audience of 5 people or 10. It will grow over time if you're delivering some good content or anything else. So I think just start, and you can do it definitely.
Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not advocating for anyone to join one community over the other. I'd say that, I guess, like on our end, when we look at different projects and evaluate them by community, we want to see like real social activity. We want to see that people are talking about your project on Twitter or in real life at parties and events, more than just like a ticker or something like that. And I think the thing that we've been most interested by recently has probably been the Bearchain community. And I'm not going to go deep into that project, but I think they have a really interesting opportunity to onboard a lot of people into their community, because on the one hand, it's kind of targeting a really mission-oriented thing, like solving alignment, using proof of liquidity to kind of give incentives for applications to actually stay loyal to chains, to come on board to chains, to give the community the ability to bring folks on chain. But at the same time, they have a really fun kind of meme-based culture. It's like bear memes and stuff. And I don't know if you guys saw the Twitter video, but at Token, their party was thousands of people. I've never seen anything like that. So I've enjoyed hanging out with the bears.
Well, that's a great note to end on. Lots of exciting things to go check out. And thanks so much to our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.